I'm Judy Stiles. Thank you for joining us this week on Newsmakers. Well, many area communities work together to preserve their local history, and today we're focusing on McDonald County and some efforts that have been ongoing and continue, but with some great progress in the last couple of years with the Historical Society. Joining me, Lynn Tatum with the McDonald County Historical Society. Thank you for being here today.
Well, thank you for inviting me, Judy. Appreciate it.
Your project is really within the last few years, kind of recent history on what your major undertaking has been.
Yes, we started leasing the building. It is a historic courthouse that was used as a courthouse from 1871 to 1978, and then vacated. And we started leasing it and decided to restore it and create a McDonald County History Museum.
And you're located in Pineville.
Right, on the square, downtown Pineville.
So people can find it very easily when they come to town. Right. So the idea to transform this building to a museum, how did that come about throughout the years?
I think it's been a dream ever since they vacated the courthouse that one day by people in the Historical Society that it would be a museum. Actually, it was ready for the wrecking ball in 1978 when they vacated it. And Joe Piercy saved it from the wrecking ball and started a museum there at that time. But 2 years later, the county decided that they needed the building, so they canceled her lease and used the building until 2010.
Okay.
And then they were getting bids on tearing it down again. And the circuit clerk went to the Historical Society and said, can you lease it or do something with it? And we picked it up in 2011. We started leasing in 2011. And the first phase was to tear out all the old paneling and the drop ceilings and to restore it as close as we could with the money we had to its original look, which was 1871.
So the first part is just making the building usable for your needs.
Right. We pulled out old plumbing, and there were a lot of volunteers at the time. And while they were working on the restoration, they were also working on putting it on the National Register, and that takes many years of research and work. And so in 2012, it did become part of the National Register of Historic Buildings. And that's when it just took off.
So historic building housing the history of the county.
It is.
Nice match in tying it together.
Exactly.
And I understand you had, as you mentioned, lots of volunteers and local support financially for helping you with these projects.
That's right. Approximately $250,000 in 5 years it has taken us to restore the building and create the exhibits on McDonald County. And 99% of that money has come from local people. I have been very honored and amazed and humbled by the energy and participation and enthusiasm people have had to make sure that this happens. We lost a grant when we were going to open we opened the first floor in 2013. And we were told, I was in chair of the exhibit committee, putting up all the exhibits, and we had all these wonderful plans, and I was told that we would get a $25,000 grant. And it was not approved. So in the midst of all of this, I knew that we didn't have money to do the trim work on the windows and the doors, and I asked the president at that time, how much money do you need? And she said about $3,000. And of course, we didn't have any money for our exhibits, but we wanted to get that museum open, the doors open. So I went to a lady to pick up an old printing press. And she had it, and I told her we'd be back and pick it up. And she said, is there anything else you need? And I said, yeah, we just lost a grant, we need money. And she said, how much do you need? And I said, $3,000. And she said, well, I'll talk to my accountant. And I didn't know this woman. I didn't know she had any money. And I said, well, could I call you next week? And she said, sure. So I called her the next week, and I couldn't get through to her. And I called her the next week and couldn't get through to her. And I thought, well, maybe she has dementia. She was a little bit older, and I gave up on it. But then she called me, and she said, what were we talking about? And I said, money. And she said, well, would $10,000 be okay?
So she raised the amount for you.
And we went out then when we realized the enthusiasm for the people in the county. We went out, and in 6 weeks we raised $30,000.
Right. So really there's a lot of local community pride in these types of projects.
There absolutely is, and I continue to be amazed. And they came out of the woodwork. People came out and rewired electrical fixtures. They refinished furniture that we found in the old courthouse that was pretty shabby looking. They tore out the paneling, tore out old plumbing. We had people coming out of the woodwork that wanted to help.
That's
and
great.
I was very impressed. In 2013, we opened the first floor. And we decided, the team that I was working on exhibits, first of all, we didn't know anything about what we were doing. And
we want to do a museum, how do we do it?
Right. None of us had any experience in developing museum exhibits. And so we brought in a consultant for one day. And she led us down the right path.
Great.
And we set up a series of guidelines for ourselves, depending on what she said. The first guideline was, and she said, if there are live museums and there are dead museums. And the live museums have a wow factor. And the person who created this need was Disney, actually.
Yeah, we want people to remember it.
Right. If you can get people into the room and excited about what they first see, then you can present the artifacts and the stories. And so we decided that each room we would have a wow factor, and each room would be a theme of something unique and wonderful that happened in McDonald County.
Okay.
So we gave ourselves this list of guidelines, and one of them was tell the story at 3 levels, because this consultant said there are 3 types of people who visit museums. There's the type of person who comes in and all they want to see are pictures, and so tell your story in pictures.
Visualize items.
And then you'll have the type that comes in that wants to read captions. So tell your story in brief sentences. And then you will have the type of person that comes in and wants to read a lot.
They want the details.
They want the details. So we created that in all of our exhibits. We also decided that if we couldn't do it with class and couldn't do it with the finest materials, that we wouldn't do it at all.
So we went into that high level of success.
We did. And I think our comments from people that have come in from around the world actually have been very high. The highest compliment we can get is, this is a wow museum.
That's what you're looking for, that kind of reaction. Right.
And so we've enjoyed the process.
Great.
It's really been great.
Well, I know we have some pictures that you've provided, and as we're talking, the viewers can see them as well and kind of help visualize, and we'll be able to see them and describe for the audience what we're seeing. But to help visualize the actual building, I think if we can call up the pictures and start with the first one, this is the facility we're talking about.
It is. And in 1944, the brick exterior was covered with stucco when that flat roof addition went on. And recently we have been talking about should we return it to the brick, but I don't believe there is any way we can with any integrity return it to the brick, because that one-story flat roof addition was always stucco.
So keep the consistency between the two.
So it's looked like that.
Now this is what you found when you came inside.
Yes, and we the stairs going from the first floor to the second floor looked like that as we started to scrape and take it down.
So you had to bake it to the basics of where they began. We'll go to the next picture, and that's the after picture.
That's right. And you can see we even took out a piece of the wall so that people could see the original brick that was
behind
the interior.
And I see little, looks like name plaques or plates on the steps.
Yes, that's one way we raised money, Judy. We tried to get very creative. Originally, we had people adopt rooms, and then we put plaques up on their room. And all the rooms now are adopted. We adopted out all the windows. Here's a window as it was before we got to the restoration. You can see they took off the paneling, and this is the after picture. Wow. This is the room as it looks now. It was the judges' chambers, and we turned it into a little one-room
classroom display and exhibit. Right. So you're getting a lot of community support and thanking them by having their names on these displays and these items throughout.
Each of the little desks We had people adopt for like $100, and their names are on it. The teacher's desk, the stove. We came up with.
Everybody can have a piece of the display and tying that
and we
together.
still have adoption opportunities for people.
Let's move along. Now we have some pictures here that tie into your history as well.
Yes, this is the prosecutor's office as it was in that picture that you just saw.
Right. So
we have very few internal pictures of the courthouse, and this was a 1931 picture taken in that room of the prosecutor and his secretary. And we looked at that picture, and my brother blew it up for me so we could see details on every item in the picture, and we did our best to recreate.
So when we go to the next picture, we can see the recreation of that's what they would have been. So a lot of work into details of, replicating the past.
Yes, we said if we couldn't do it right, we didn't want to do it at all. So actually, I looked for that roll top. That is not the original roll top desk, but if you look carefully at the comparison, it is almost identical.
Similar to model to what they would have been.
I lived for 3 years for that desk. Finally found it up near Springfield.
So that's part of telling the story of the past, is knowing what the past looked like. When you're dealing with an empty building, where do we go from there?
That's right.
Tying
and
that
this
together.
was a cherished picture. This is the judge's bench as it looked during the restoration. This was the color of it, and we had to put in a false wall behind because we had air conditioning and heating unit that needed to be located there.
Okay, so we'll go to the next picture, and this is the after.
That's right. This is how it looked at Christmas time, actually, with a few little Christmas decorations. We have the Missouri seal, and we have the 2 bronze plaques that were there originally. We looked for months and months for an important jury chair. We wanted a judge's chair. We wanted that chair to be very impressive. We decided it was the most important chair in the whole courthouse.
I noticed the drop-down lighting as well.
Yes. We they had those types of lights throughout the museum, and some of them are original. The ones downstairs are original, rewired, and these we couldn't get enough to match, so we went to a restoration hardware type lighting store, and
probably learned a lot about where to find things to help what you're looking for.
Oh my goodness. the internet, eBay, and yes, we went there. Actually, there are a lot of people here in Joplin who helped us. One of the first places we went when we were beginning was your museum here, and talked to the curator and got a lot of good tips on how to do things and implemented them.
So sharing from museum to museum.
Yes.
Let's move on to the next picture, and we can see some bottles. Explain what we have here in the bottles.
These are liquor bottles that we found in the walls during the restoration. And we now have them in the Jesse James room, the making of the movie. They made the 1938 Hollywood movie, and we have a bar set up that they had created for one of the scenes, and we recreated that bar. And so we have.
So you say, were they in the walls, kind of hidden behind a wall?
Yes, hidden behind the plaster walls. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So at a time when you weren't supposed to have liquor in the county, people were sneaking them in.
And there is a story that has some support. I won't announce any names, but they said that the tax assessor had a little problem with the bottle, and so people brought him liquor and to ensure that they would get their taxes raised.
So a new story behind everything. Okay. Let's move on. We have.
This is the entry to the museum. It is telling the story of the courthouse. The center picture is an 1871 picture of the courthouse. Telling the story of the courthouse in pictures, and then to the left is a chronology, and those are just captions, and then to the right all the details about the history of the courthouse and the different additions and structuring it went through. And we left some of the brick down below, put plexiglass in front of it so people could see that the original walls were brick.
This is what it looked like originally, and that deals with those 3 levels, as you mentioned, of people: that the pictures, the short captions, and the more detailed presentations.
We tried to follow
that advice. Okay, next picture then.
And this is right across from that wall. This is all about the entry hall. When you walk in the main doors, this is what you would see. The podium came from the First Presbyterian Church in Southwest City, and it's on loan from them. Another thing that the consultant told us was have a map where people can identify where they are and where they've been. So we have little pins on that map, and along the left side of the map and the right side of the map we have people on the left side, of course, that came from Japan and India, and then on the right side people that came from Europe. But that map is just full. We've had about 3,000 visitors in 3 years.
So that helps with a little interaction as the people come, and they're having a piece of the involvement of being there.
That's right.
Tying that together.
Right. That's right. And this is, as you come in the entryway, this is what you see. We have our greeter, and that is a museum figure from Baltimore. It's what you call a Dorfman figure, and his face is very real. If you get up close, the children just love Jim. And behind him is what we call the community hall. On the right are the bygone day communities. A long time ago, there were 30, 40, 50 communities. Each one had a little one-room school in the county because of transportation. On the left, we have the map of McDonald County, and we have located the main cities in the county. And then I went out with a group of people, and we went to every city in the county and said, what's your history? And if you had to do a picture of your history, what picture would you choose? And for instance, the people in Goodman said we want a picture of orchards because Mr. Goodman was an orchardist and came down from Kansas City, and we named our town after him. And so we have a picture of an orchard for Goodman, and we did that for all the towns.
So really, the towns each had a say in how they were going to be seen at the museum. So lots of pictures, lots of visuals. People can stop and look. And I imagine, do you got people who come back that maybe their grandparents or parents grew up in the county and they want to come back and there's a little bit of history they can see?
Oh yes, oh yes. This is our portrait gallery. Whoops, if we can go back to
the one previously. Okay.
Yeah, this is our portrait gallery. Actually, we have, this is Matthias Flitlog in here and some other important folks in the county. We anticipate that in this portrait gallery, eventually we will have it floor to ceiling, wall to wall of important people in McDonald County.
So that's an ongoing presentation as people come up with the photos and develop that.
Yes.
Now we can go on to the next one.
And this is our law enforcement area. We have a hall here where we have some of the older sheriffs. And there have been so many weird stories, wonderful weird stories that have happened. I sometimes believe the spirits of the courthouse are at work. We hung the picture, the third one from the left is a picture of the only sheriff that was killed in McDonald County, and we had put that picture up the very next day. There were a group of women outside. We hadn't opened yet. And I said, they said, we're from out of town. Can we come in and look? And I said, sure. They saw that picture and they said, that's our great-grandfather. We had just hung the picture.
Wow.
And I can tell you a lot of stories like that, Judy. It's a
lot of people having their personal history. Now, obviously, you have tying into law enforcement displays.
That's right. And that's our Sheriff Dorfman. And we put in a jail cell, and it's iron, and the door works, and the kids go in there and get their picture taken. This is... there are the kids. That's one of their favorite
thing.
places.
Let's go in the jail cell. Right.
And we did certain things for specifically for the children. The courthouse was never used as a jail, but we wanted to honor the jail, the old jail, and we wanted to honor our law enforcement effort, and so we put the jail cell in there for the kids.
So they're able to see that part of the story of law enforcement. Okay, we'll move on to...
This is the strawberry room. McDonald County was once known as the strawberry capital of the world, and we have everything in that room about strawberries, except that press is an apple press made for to make apple cider. But to the left you can see bricks with more plaques, and those are the original bricks from the courthouse. Actually was built in 1861. And in 1863, some angry citizens burned it to the ground.
And that's about the time of the Civil War and problems like that, right?
And it wasn't rebuilt until 1871 because of the Civil War. But these bricks here we saved from the first 1861 courthouse and recreated an opportunity for people to buy a brick for $100 and we put their plaque on it.
To carry through from there. Okay, next picture then.
This is a story of the secession. In 1861, McDonald County was left off the map, the state map, that was designed for tourists. And when the county went to the state and said, why did you leave us off the map? They said, you're too commercial. Well, I think they weren't too happy with that decision, so they wrote a resolution to the state legislature and seceded from the state and called themselves McDonald Territory.
Not county. Right.
This is 1961, and it was tongue-in-cheek, but it created international news. In fact, the story is that Russia used it at the time to show there was unrest in the United States.
So these people want to leave the country. Okay.
This is our quilt hall.
So a lot of people contributing their quilts and helping with their collections.
People are still making quilts in McDonald County. This is our military room.
So you're talking about the different theme rooms as we go through. You're walking down the hallway, you're able to go into each room and look at the many displays. Go on to the next one then for the...
This is our Jesse James movie room, the Dixie Belle Saloon, and a dress that was worn by an extra. That was a very important event for our county because it was 1938. It was during the Depression, and Hollywood came and paid extras and paid for lumber and people. They paid to rent horses and carts and buggies and.
So making that movie made a difference in the county.
It did.
Right.
It did. This is our gift shop. We call it the Emporium.
Right. Okay. You can go on to the next one then.
This is our drugstore.
Okay.
We realized that there were a lot of drugstores in the county in these little towns, and kids went there after school. And we had a daughter of one of the proprietors from Pineville that helped us recreate this drugstore. That is a milkshake maker that came directly from across the street in a drugstore.
Okay, so an authentic used in the area.
This is our little theater. We have 3 walk-in vaults. The drugstore is a walk-in vault, the theater is a walk-in vault, and the sheriff's office is a walk-in vault. Each one of them are about 8 by 15 feet. And we created this little theater so people can come in and actually watch the Hollywood movie of the Jesse James.
Great. So it's a movie theater as well as
or oral histories.
Oral history.
Yeah. Now this is an example of one of our dresses in a new exhibit. This is a temporary exhibit that will be up for just a couple years, and we have taken we're showing 100 years of fashion.
So let's go through these as we're seeing the different clothing throughout those years and the decades, right?
And this is around 1930, because that's why we put it in this room that looks like 1930.
The timing of the 30s, right? Go on to the next one.
And this is 1960.
So a lot of people contributing, helping you with these clothing styles for the
Oh
fashion.
yes, we have a lot of people donated, and many people have loaned us their clothes. This is the bustle period. We divided the 100 years the courthouse was open from 1871 to 1978 into decades. And in the courtroom, we have these the decades announced on the wall there. You can see this
see the
is
sign behind it.
1880.
Okay, go on to the next.
This is a permanent exhibit to honor music in our county.
Right, music.
And especially Albert Brumley and I'll Fly Away. This is a woman who does, Karen Almeter, who does spinning and weaving. And she is coming to our grand opening.
So people can see history in action.
May 28th,
Right,
yes.
living history, as they say.
Yes.
Right, okay. Go on to the next. Quilt
And
making.
this is another exhibit that will be available in our grand opening. These are the quilters that are still at work in McDonald County.
And if you've never seen a quilt being made, it takes a lot of dedication to complete one. I mean, you can see it being happen.
You bet. And this group is Trilogy. They'll be part of our entertainment. Across from the courthouse, we have a bandstand, and we'll have cloggers and the Neo Show Ridge Runners band, and these 3 are wonderful.
Part of the entertainment.
They're called Trilogy.
And
so
then
we're having our grand opening. We're closed in the winter. We open
so Memorial Day weekend, your grand opening each year. Come out and have special events and special activities tying into that.
Right, for the family. Now this is a project that just started. We're having all the 4th graders in the county come through the museum on field trips. This happens to be the gifted and talented group that came in last fall, but they do a scavenger hunt. We give them a list of questions, and they have to look for the answers.
So they see the whole museum through their assignment, basically, and working together. That's great.
It's been highly successful. The kids, actually an 8th grader told me, frankly, I came prepared to be bored, but this was really
And that's what you want, kids to enjoy what they're learning while they're doing it. And so forth.
So,
and of course, the kids in jail that we saw earlier.
They
they're playing
generally line up. This has been a favorite activity. We have a telephone exhibit, and the kids nowadays do not know how to deal with a rotary dial.
We're just to push buttons, right?
So they spend some time here, and it's fun to watch a grandma teach their grandchild.
Pull it over and let it come back. And right.
Right. And here are the kids, the fourth graders, in our one-room school. We have books at each desk.
So they're seeing what it would have been like to sit in those desks during the times at school, tying together. So lots of neat photos tying everything together. I know that there's so much we can talk about, but we want to let people know for sure before we run out of time where to find you, the times, the hours, and so forth.
Sure. We're open in the summertime and through the fall.
Okay.
On Fridays and Saturdays from 10 to 4.
Okay.
And we don't open in the wintertime because we have 3 stories and the cost of keeping it open is too high for us. So we keep it open weekends in the summertime. Our grand opening is May 28th, and on a Saturday we'll be open from 10 to 4. And we have a website.
Right, see their website, so they can in addition go to your website to find out more information and find out more about the exhibits. And if somebody wants to support you, of course, obviously you have the Historical Society, so that's a means of supporting your operations. And
right. We try to be very creative in how we can raise money. One of the things you saw there was a calendar that we put out every year of old photos that people just love. We sell those for $8, and the theme this year is tourism. We have the Adopt opportunities, and we have our mailing address is Post Office Box 572 in Pineville.
Okay.
And so people can join. We have a little membership brochure here. We have 3 types of memberships. We have Friends membership of $50. We have an individual membership of $25, and we have a family membership, or an individual membership of $15, and a family membership of $25.
Okay. So there's lots of different levels, ways they can help out and getting involved and so forth. And I know you also brought that, before we run out of time, let people know that you also have a new brochure talking about your heritage trail throughout the whole county. So not only if you come visit the courthouse, you can go throughout the county and take a trail and see things throughout some of the history.
You bet. We're trying to reach out to tourists and as well as our local people here. And we also publish books of people's memoirs. We're doing an oral history project. Al Chapman is our board chair. We have 15 members on our board, and they all work very hard.
That's the best way to have a board, is hardworking people.
That's right, because we don't have any paid curator. We don't have anyone on salary. And so it's all volunteers.
Success for what you're doing through the volunteers, and people have a commitment to preserving the past.
They do.
Great. Well, Lynn, I'd like to thank you very much for visiting with us today and providing information for the audience.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much, Judy, for having me.
You're welcome. And I'd like to thank you, the viewers, for joining us this week on Newsmakers. I'm Judy Stiles. Hope you can join me again next week at the same time on this station. We'll see you then.